Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, a show in which we look at the players that are being linked to Arsenal and ultimately could one day, fingers crossed when football is back, be ending up at the Emirates and pulling on that red and white jersey. And today is no different as we talk about Real Madrid's Serbian striker, Luka Jovic. Now, before we jump into things, I want to say a big thank you to everyone that watched our recent video. During these times, honestly, I get that people aren't really watching content at the moment because football just isn't the main thing, and that's completely fair enough. But the Axel Disasi video was great, and you guys seem to loved it, and you put some really kind comments on that video too, and I've read through them all, and I genuinely really do appreciate those. So I hope you enjoyed this video as much as you did the last one. And you continue to like and subscribe and click that bell to make sure that you get notified whenever these shows drop, which is today, hopefully. I've been stressed and frustrated trying to get this video out as much as possible with the time scale of work, because I'm still working, believe it or not. But let's stop procrastinating and let's get straight into the video. So, as with a lot of these players, Luka Jovic is someone that I know a fair amount about from his time in Spain, and not so much his time in the Bundesliga, which is where he really mainly got his reputation. But there is someone I know that is going to give you the lowdown on this guy in terms of the Spanish perspective. Now, we like on these shows because I'm not around to watch Luka Jovic's games in and out, and I'm not going to be one of these people that drops on a video, as I say, every single time and pretends like he knows everything about these players. But I like to educate myself, and I like to be educated by people who do know what they're talking about. So this show's guest is Mr. Kieran Quaile, who's been on the show before, and he's the editor-in-chief of the Spanish Football News Now, or Get Spanish Football News Now, should I say, website, which is a fantastic website which gets you loads of fantastic content regarding Spanish football. I've written pieces for them, and I'll talk to you a little bit about something extra that I've spoken to plenty of you about before as well afterwards. But Kieran, talk to us about Luka Jovic.
Hello, I'm Kieran Quaile from Get Spanish Football News. Luka Jovic is currently a Real Madrid player. It's his first season at the Santiago Bernabeu. He hasn't settled in very well to life at Real Madrid. He's only played a handful of times from the start. He scored 2 goals in 24 appearances this season for Los Blancos, and he just hasn't really settled in very well there. Zinedine Zidane tends to play Karim Benzema as the focal point up front on his own, and unfortunately for Jovic, he just hasn't had the chance to prove himself in Spain. He joined for €60 million from Eintracht Frankfurt, so he came, there was some expectancy to hit the ground running, and for whatever reason, he's fallen out of favour. He hasn't played in the last 3 league games. He hasn't even been in the squad for Real Madrid. One of those games was the Clásico against Barcelona. What is Jovic actually like as a player? Well, for La Liga fans, we haven't really seen too much of him this season. He's strong, low centre of gravity. He's 2-footed, very good off either foot, which makes him a nightmare for defenders. Bundesliga defenders will, I'm sure, agree with that. He has a superb record there with Eintracht Frankfurt, and that's the reason why he got his move to Real Madrid. So he is very good in the box, in and around the box, but he just hasn't been sharp. He hasn't been himself for Real Madrid, and that has just left him out of favour at the club. So it's been a tough season for him. There's still a lot of potential there. He hasn't become a bad player overnight. He joined for 60 million, so they obviously see something in him, and he probably needs another season or two at the club just to get going. But his future's up in the air now, especially since he fled Madrid under lockdown. He flew back to Serbia to celebrate his girlfriend's birthday last month, and it caused some controversy in Serbia. So it hasn't been a great year for the Serbian. He's been linked with Arsenal in the British media. There hasn't been too much speculation in Spain about a move for him to the London club, but it could be the right move for him. He needs to regain his confidence. He needs to score goals, and if Aubameyang is to leave Arsenal, he could be the man to slot in there. He needs to be made the focal point. He needs to be made the number 9 striker to improve a team, to get goals. He hasn't had that opportunity at Real Madrid, and who knows, maybe Zidane has doesn't fancy him anymore, and he won't get that opportunity. So time will tell. Thanks very much for listening. I hope all's well, and take care.
Thank you very much to Kieran for dropping in and giving us the lowdown of Luka Jovic, telling us what the guy is like and what a move to Arsenal may see us seeing where he'd pull on that red and white jersey. So we've basically gleaned from that is that Luka Jovic is someone that came with a lot of expectation, massive fee from Frankfurt. Obviously, it was a weird situation at Frankfurt because he was originally at Benfica, was on loan at Frankfurt. They had an option to buy for a very, very small fee. And during that season that he was on loan, he absolutely smashed it in Germany, and that obviously led to Frankfurt paying that buyout fee to then just sell him straight on to Real Madrid, where things have not gone to plan, it's fair to say. And Kieran talked about that, and Kieran is a massive part of Spanish Football News and the Modern Football magazine as well. Please make sure you go check that. There's always a link to the description. I've got articles in there, so has Drew, so has Richard Hall, who's obviously been on this as well. So loads of great stuff, so please do go and check that out. It's not an advert, I don't get anything for it, it's not my magazine, but it is a fantastic one, so please do go and check that out. But you're not only here to talk about Luka Jovic and get the expert perspective, you're also here to look at his statistics. So let's look at those by starting off with our trusty heat map. So the heat map is quite cold for a heat map because he hasn't played too much. He's a striker, he's a fox in the box type of guy, he's good with both feet. If you watch some of his clips from when he played at Frankfurt, the way he darts into the box and gets on the end of balls and crosses to create chances for himself is a key part of his game. And Arsenal, you just sort of feel like that would definitely bleed into something that he'd cope well with. We create a fair amount of chances most of the time, especially now under Mikel Arteta, and some of those chances, or a lot of those chances, are actually going astray, especially with Lacazette's form being completely out of favour. So hopefully Luka Jovic, if he can find the form of finishing that he had in Germany, then definitely recreating that in England would be certainly something I'd love to see. Moving then on to his his attacking stats, should I say. His attacking stats, 2 goals, 2 assists, as Kieran mentioned. Shots, just under 2 in each game, with a 33% on target ratio. Not too high, not as lethal as what we saw in the Frankfurt top. And you can actually see what I mentioned about that fox in the box, the person who likes to take chances in there. And most of, if not all of his shots, all of his goals and his shots that are going on target are coming from inside that box, because that's where he wants to be, that's where he's most dangerous, and that's where every single point of his game counts the most. In terms of creativeness and shot assists, still quite low. Crosses, not too much part of his game, and we'll come on to that in his passing stats. Dribbles, 30% success rate of his dribbles. As I said, he's a poacher. He's not one who's going to drive the ball at opposition teams, and hasn't done that for Real Madrid so far. Offensive duels, he's only winning 18.2% of those. He's not a person to get his foot stuck in too much, which for a lot of people turns people off strikers, because they like them to put in the dirty work basically. But he's not a guy that comes out on top too many times. But he is getting involved with nearly 7 of those in each game. 2.54 touches in the penalty area per match, but that's obviously been much more limited down to the amount of minutes that he's played. And the offsides, 0.53, progressive runs, 0.53 again, and foul suffered, 0.21. He's a man that likes to be a poacher. We can do that to death, and the stats definitely confirm that. Moving then on to his passing statistics. 20 passes being made in each game with an 85.7% success rate for a striker. That's not too bad whatsoever. Long passes, 77% accuracy is quite good, but it's quite a low frequency that he's actually making in each game. But for a striker that's a fox in the box, you don't expect that to be too high in terms of long passing. For any strikers, no matter their style. Through passes, 0.21 with 0% success rate isn't too good, and actually something that I like to see from Arsenal players, especially their strikers, their ability to link play. We've seen it with Olivier Giroud, we see it partly with Alexander Lacazette as well, but not so much with Luka Jovic. He definitely bleeds in more so to Aubameyang with his style of being a striker. He's not one that's going to want to create. As soon as he gets the ball, he wants to find the net, and he doesn't bleed into too much of what we'd see from maybe a creative forward. So take that with a pinch of salt. Assist, 0.21, we talked about that already. Passing to the final third and passing to the penalty area are very low in frequency and varying in their accuracy. Received passes, 14.47. That's all down to the fact that he plays so few minutes for Real Madrid at the moment as well. And forward to backward passes, a negative ratio, Typical for a striker, because often when they receive the ball, they lay it backwards. Sometimes they're not ones to play the ball forwards too often, especially for one that isn't a too creative striker. Defensive stats, I think it's important we always consider these defensive stats when we're talking about a forward player, because I like them getting stuck in. But as we talked about with his offensive duels a little bit earlier on, he's not that guy. Defensive duels per game, 2.54. He doesn't get stuck in too much, and even when he does, 58.3% success rate isn't high whatsoever. Aerial duels, even though he's not the tallest, 4.86 are being conducted in each game with a 41.3 success rate, which isn't too bad for someone of his height. Loose balls and duels won, 16% are won in loose ball duels, which isn't high at all. You can't be, well, it's not that you can't be expecting to do it, because some people would argue that definitely all players should be doing it, but you're not going to get that from Jovic. 1.27 interceptions. And losses to recoveries. He's losing the ball nearly 10 times in each match, with a 31% of those being in his own half, which is alarmingly high for a forward player. Recoveries, 80% being in the opposition half, and recoveries 2 in each game. That ratio is very, very low, which you're starting to see the reasons why he may be out of favour at Los Blancos. Clearances, fouls, yellow cards, red cards, all low, as you would expect. So there you have it. All the statistics you could possibly want regarding Luka Jovic. Now, it is important, I think, that you take these statistics with a grain of salt. Luka Jovic has moved to Real Madrid for a massive, massive fee, with a lot of expectation on his shoulders, with a Karim Benzema, who is now there, looking to be the talismanic figure ever since Cristiano Ronaldo left. And that has been the case, and Benzema has been absolutely flying since Ronaldo left. He's stopped being the creator that he was for the Portuguese forward, and he's now become a lethal striker, or rather returned to being a lethal striker. And for me, I don't think you can put too much criticism at Luka Jovic's feet. He's still very, very young, very, very early 20s. He's still very, very underrated by a lot of people. And if you go and speak to a lot of people that watched him in Germany, they will tell you that he is a very lethal, very talented and very high in potential in terms of his striking ability. So I wouldn't write this one off. If he signed for Arsenal, I'd actually be quite intrigued to see how it played out. Yes, it would be a massive risk. I think the fee that would come into it would be quite high, because they want to recoup as much of that 50 plus million euros and pounds that they paid for him. But also there are links to it possibly being a loan deal, which could interest us. It's much, much lower risk. He could come in. If he doesn't do great, then we just send him back, much like Dani Ceballos has done for us this season. Still mixed thoughts on about that Spanish player. But what do you think about Luka Jovic? Please let me know in the comment section below. Please tell me what you think. Should we be signing him? Should we be looking to someone else? We've looked at other strikers like Odsonne Edouard at Celtic. He's certainly the one that excites me a little bit more, maybe so, than Jovic. But playing in the Scottish League, there's risks and there's different things to think about of every single player. So tell me what you think in the comment section. Please drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed exposing yourself to this content, and drop a subscription if you would like to get a lot more of it, and turn those notifications on so you make sure you never miss a show. And any suggestions of people that you think we should be covering, as long as I can get hold of one of our good experts, don't worry, I'll be doing that as much as I feasibly can. As always, stay safe, stay at home and protect everyone around you. We'll see you very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.